It's not sharing. And that's sharing. Let's see. This needs to go up. All right, I'm pretty sure we're live. We have a little bit different setup this month with two cameras going here so you can better see what I'm cooking. Welcome everybody to the March edition of Calendar Cooking with Elizabeth, and I'm your host, Elizabeth. I'm Elizabeth Coots. I'm the Woodford County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences here in Woodford County. We are part of the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. And if this is your first time watching this calendar cooking series, glad to have you here. Each month, I am cooking the recipe that comes out of the nutrition education calendar that is part of the University of Kentucky Nutrition Education Program. So this calendar is available to you here at the Woodford County Extension Office. If you would like your very own copy, you can stop by our office and pick one up. We're located at 184 Beasley Road in the county park. And you can call us or email me and be glad to get you one of these calendars. If you're watching this and you're outside of Woodford County and in Kentucky, you have a local extension service and you can contact your local office to get one of these calendars. So the recipe that we are highlighting today, which is March, can't believe we're already in March, just a few days in here, thinking of spring, but this is a salad recipe. And you might be thrown off by the name of the recipe because it is chicken Caesar pasta. But if you look at the picture, you see that it is very much a salad, but it's a new take on a salad that you may not have had before. We had a lesson earlier last month about salads and all different kinds of ways that you could prepare a salad to make it a little better than just lettuce maybe, or maybe something without lettuce. So this salad does have a base of lettuce. We have romaine lettuce in it. It does have chicken, and then we also have pasta on this salad, which might be a little different, something you haven't had before. I encourage you to try it. And then we're gonna make a homemade dressing that's gonna go on the salad, a homemade Caesar dressing. So to get started, I'm gonna tell you what you need for this recipe. An 8-ounce package of whole wheat pasta, and pasta usually comes in a 16-ounce or a pound container. So that's what I have, that's what I've used. And I just used half of this box, this 16-ounce box of pasta here. And it is whole wheat. Okay, we talked about that last month with pasta. On the front, it says 100% whole grain. I'm using rotini pasta. If you're ever not sure though, turn it over to the side or the back and look at the nutrition facts label. So the first ingredient in my pasta that I'm using today is whole durum wheat flour. That whole is the key that this is truly whole wheat. Now sometimes products can be tricky if it just says wheat, because technically white bread and regular white pasta is still wheat, it's just not whole wheat. So be sure to turn your box or your container around and check on that. I'm just checking our chicken here. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So we have our pasta. We have a tablespoon of oil, and I have already added the oil to my skillet here, and I have 2 chicken breasts, which is next on the list. I wanted to go ahead and get those cooking so we didn't have to stand here and wait for those to cook. So they're still finishing up cooking. We have a cup of croutons. We have 4 cups of chopped romaine lettuce, or any kind of lettuce that you like or that you already have at home. A half a cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. And then we are going to use a cup of the Caesar dressing that we're going to make. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to come over here and check my chicken. And we're going to change the camera angle here so that you can see what I am doing down here a little bit closer. So, let our camera focus a little bit here. Gotta wake up. There we go. Okay, so you see I have my chicken here cooking. What I'm gonna do, it's browned on both sides, but rather than just look at it and see that it's cooked, I am gonna use my meat thermometer. That is really the only way that you can determine that any type of meat is cooked all the way through. So I have my tongs here. I'm gonna have to use my right hand switch here. I'm just gonna hold up and I'm gonna put, and I can see actually right here that it's still a little opaque. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but I'm gonna insert my meat thermometer into the thickest part of the chicken here. And I don't think that it is gonna be done, but I am looking for my meat thermometer to read 165 degrees. And it's going up. It's about at 135. So it is not cooked. So I'm going to just leave this on here. I'm going to set my meat thermometer right here away from where I'm going to have my fresh produce because it had raw meat on it since I put it in that chicken. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and prepare my dressing. Okay, and I have my ingredients. I'm going to pull over here so you can see. Actually, I'm going to scoot my camera over just a little here. So our recipe calls for our dressing, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, and I did not have Dijon mustard, and I didn't really want to buy a whole container of Dijon mustard. So you can see probably from the color of this mustard that this is just regular yellow mustard. And that's fine to use. If you don't want to buy it, then if you're not going to use it, then don't buy it. Just use what you have. Try to get creative if you can. So then we have a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, however you would like to pronounce that word. And then we have 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. And we're going to go ahead and mix this together. Actually, I'm going to switch to my whisk. We're going to whisk it together so that mustard can kind of break up a little bit. And then we're going to add to this 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And if you've ever mixed oil and water together, you know that they don't mix very well together. So in this recipe, the mustard that we're using is acting as an emulsifier, and that is just going to bind the lemon juice and the oil together. So I'm just going to stir this up just a little bit, tilt it. So if you can see there, it's coming together. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but they're not, the oil and the water or the lemon juice is not separating. So then I'm going to add my low-fat mayonnaise, and it calls for 3/4 of a cup. Well, I don't have a 3/4 of a cup container, but I do have, and you probably can't see it, but you just have to trust me. I do have a 1/2 cup and a 1/4 of a cup. So, you have to do a little math. If you have kids, you can get them in the kitchen and talk about math, make them think just a little bit. I know a lot of people don't think that you use some of the math that you learn about in school, but you do. If you're going to cook, which we all have to cook, you're going to use some math at some point. So I'm going to mix that in here. And lastly, I'm going to add a half a cup of shredded Parmesan cheese and just some black pepper. So the recipe calls for a half a teaspoon of black pepper, but again, this is one of those recipes that if you want it to be a little more peppery, a little less peppery, you can adjust it to how you like. So I'm just gonna whisk this all together. And mind you, so when I said that I was gonna make a Caesar salad dressing, you may have thought that I was gonna use raw eggs. And this recipe, as you see, does not use raw eggs. That is because raw eggs are not safe to consume. So we want to avoid that. So we have our dressing here, and this does make a little more than a cup, but we're going to use that for our recipe. So I'm going to come back over here and check the chicken. Definitely looks like, oh yeah, it's nice and browned on the other side. So I'm actually going to get the other, I'm going to switch hands here. I'm going to get the other chicken breast. And I'm going to put my meat thermometer down in the side, and I'm just going to wait to see that it comes up to 165, which it is. It's climbing. So, and I know it's kind of hard to see the dial on the camera, but for any chicken, you want to make sure that it's cooked to 165 degrees. And you want to have the meat thermometer, like I said, to be sure that it is in fact cooked all the way through. But when you cut it, you'll see if it is white all the way through. If it's pink, you know, for something happened, then keep cooking it until it's cooked all the way through. So I'm gonna bring my chicken breast out here on my cutting board, and I'm gonna turn my burner off over here. I'm going to use my tongs here because they are hot, as you can imagine. So I'm just going to start cutting. Oh, and it looks like it's wanting to shred. I'm going to cut just in pieces, or if you wanted to cut in strips, you could cut it in strips. Whatever size you want it to be, you can do that. And that one is kind of falling apart, so I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to actually turn my cutting board here so that I can just cut all the way across here. If it was cold, and I would probably wait for the chicken to cool down before I did this, but for purposes of this video, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it while it's hot. And you can see it's shredding just a little bit. I think it would be really, really nice to have shredded chicken on this salad, actually. Okay. So I actually don't have a problem with it shredding a little bit more than it would if it was cold and it was a little more firm. All right. And you know, a quick way also to make this salad is to use canned chicken. If you have canned chicken, that, you know, for some people that's a staple, you could certainly use canned chicken. Okay. So it's a little messy, but hey, it works. So I have in this very large bowl here my salad, and the recipe basically says mix it all together. But first what I'm going to do, so I have, and this is in the beginning of the recipe, I have a cup of croutons that I'm going to pour in. And remember, I have 4 cups of the romaine lettuce. I have a half a cup of Parmesan cheese, another half a cup of Parmesan cheese, because, you know, there was some cheese in the dressing. So I'm going to just kind of toss this together here. And then I'm going to add my chicken just right in the bowl here. And I'm going to kind of mix that together. And then I'm going to add my pasta. So this recipe, you make the pasta as you normally would, and then you rinse it with cold water, and then you let it sit to dry. And just a little tip, when you're letting it sit to dry, make sure that you periodically stir it a little bit, because you may had the experience before where you cook the pasta, you have it on the stove, and then it all sticks together and it's one big clump. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen with this, and you can just kind of stir it. So I'm going to pour my pasta onto my salad now. And for this recipe, you can use any type of pasta. So the recipe doesn't specify. You could use macaroni, or you could use spaghetti if you want. That might be a little messy, but you could, because the recipe doesn't specify. And even if the recipe does specify, in instances like this, you can just use whatever you like. Use what you have at home. Okay, so now I'm going to measure a cup of my dressing here. Let's see, let me scooch over here so you can see. And like I said, it makes just a little bit more than a cup. But I don't like a whole lot of dressing, so I am going to measure the dressing, and I'm just going to kind of pour it on here. It looks delicious and smells good. And so we have the protein in our chicken. We have pasta, of course. We have whole grain, and we have our greens, and we have some calcium with our cheese that we have. So there it is, our chicken Caesar salad. And I'm going to go ahead and plate it up here so you can see. So this, in the calendar, it gives you a suggestion to make it a meal. And this month, let's see, I'm going to scoot this back here so you can see it, and all my mess over here. This month, to make it a meal, it suggests a glass of low-fat milk and some sliced cucumbers and tomatoes as well. And I think I'm just going to mix all this together, mix the cucumbers and tomatoes in to make one bigger salad. So I hope that you've enjoyed this recipe. I hope that you try to make it at home. Like I said, even though it might be a little different putting pasta in your salad, but it really makes it a more bulky of a salad, a little bit more of a meal than just the greens. So join us next month. I'll be here the first Wednesday of every month. And don't forget, if you need one of these calendars, contact us here at the Woodford County Extension Office or your local Kentucky Extension Office to get a calendar. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.